so change of atmosphere a little bit again. I'm Catherine. I really shouldn't be here. I've written 3 columns about Linda, and I understand in a very deep level that I am not an expert to any degree on the 400 rules that have snagged many of the people in this room, Linda, the policy about how social service agencies work at all. I'm a columnist. I'm a very tired columnist. I'm covering cholera for the last 10 days, so excuse me if I drift around a little bit. But anyway, I was asked to talk to you a bit about powers of stories, how I came to this story. If you want to tell your story, how I would suggest you get it told. There was another Colette was really good to give me some notes of what she wanted me to say. What the media looks for when deciding what to write about, and the feedback. So I'll just follow your notes. So I met Linda indirectly. When I started as a columnist, I went to Hard House, and there was an exhibit on the food people had to feed themselves. I think it was for a week. It was based on that very cool book where a writer and a photographer went around the world and they photographed families from around the world with a whole month of supply of all their foods. They did it around the city for a week. And Linda's photo struck me because there was her and some pasta and some cans and potatoes, just lots of potatoes. So a couple weeks later, this doctor down in Chinatown got slapped by the government for the special food diet, and he was the one who was targeted in the Auditor General's review as someone who was, they said, was handing out too many special diet allowance checks to people, basically, or signing them that they could get them, taking their boxes. So I went down and I did a column about him, and I remembered Linda. And I just actually remembered the photo, and so I called the person who put that together, and I went and met Linda at her apartment to talk about what she ate, and she did indeed eat a lot of potatoes by the end of the month when all of her check had run out. So, and she started telling me a bit about her job, and so I think that these are the, I'll continue and you'll see that there's a point to this. And I started listening about how she had this job that she loved, but she was going to have to stop working at it, or drop hours at that point because of how the system worked. And Linda's strength is that she's, as you've seen, and you are all here because you love Linda or are inspired by her, is that she's an incredible speaker, very passionate, and she kind of cut to the heart of that right away with me, and I thought, this cannot be true. It doesn't make any sense for this to be true. So we sat down, we went through her bills, and she showed me her ODSP check and her rent, and I saw that it was true, and it made no sense to me. So I arranged to come and see her at CAMH, do her job. Now, the way the media works is really strange. We live in a really big city, but often it feels like there's only about 20 people in it. Because the day I was going to meet Linda at CAMH, Carol Gore, my colleague at the Star, wrote a piece about, I think it was about the special food diet or something, but anyway, she used Linda as an example. And I don't know how she found Linda. I think basically I think that this sort of demonstrates the 2 different approaches, 2 diametrically different approaches, and I know that there's many, many within 360 degrees or between them, but Carol Gore is much more of an expert on these issues than I am. It's something that she's been writing about for years and years and years and years. And she's someone who will take an issue and often look for the person to demonstrate the issue. I'm more of an explorer type. I like to meet people, learn about the issues, get dragged in that way. That's what I enjoy. I like the discovery of things. So she found her that way, and I was, reading the article on the way back after spending 2 hours with Linda in a drumming session on the CAMH ward, going, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Kidding me? I was like, "Linda, you didn't tell me? You talked to someone else at the Star? she first doesn't know how it works, right? Like, and so I decided, screw it, I'm going to write it anyway. And like, she wasn't on the floor of Cam H drumming. I was. Anyway, so I wrote the story anyway, you know, and because I think, and I said it in my column, I think some stories need to be told time and time and time and time again. And that's, you know, we recycle things all the time, you know, in the newspaper industry, that we're all about recycling. As is life, you have a good idea, so, you know, you shouldn't have to make up new ideas all the time. If it's good, it's good. And what happened next was really nice, and it got me sort of deeper, is that I got an email over Christmas. Someone said, I sent you $1,500. I'm just making you know, I dropped it off at the office. I'm just making sure you got it. Yeah. And it was, I've got 2 little kids, so Christmas is crazy. So Christmas, and I'm like, oh, it can't be. Like, who drops off $1,500 at the office? And then I woke up one morning and was like, oh my God, who drops $1,500 in my office? I gotta get, like, make sure. So he gave me, someone read the story and sent $1,500 for Linda to deal with some of her financial issues. And it was a temporary relief, but given the system, it clearly would only last a little while. And I discovered at the time, too, that under the rules of, you know, like, I got really scared that if I write this column and I write about this lovely gift, will Linda get screwed because of that? You know, will they take it away? So I called a friend at welfare who works for welfare, a contact on a different stories I write about, and she said, you know, I'll look it up, and found out there's a $6,000 limit on gifts. So as long as you make, anyway, I think so. I guess the point is, for me, is that what makes a good story. For most journalists, there's 2 rules of thumb I can think of. I'm sure there's lots more, but off the top of my foggy head, there's 2. One is tension. So my boss always says, as a columnist, pick a target and shoot. You know, I'm a very gray person. I don't live in black and whites, so I find that hard. It takes me a lot of aiming and a lot of pacing before I actually shoot. And the other thing is a good story. You know, I'm sure many of you have really good stories in this room. And Linda, through the practice I think that she got through the Deep Dream team and other boards that she sat on, she has the ability to distill her story really quickly. And she taught me a lot. I mean, lots of things I learned in my, you know, this discovery was, for instance, that it costs money to work, because you got to look good. You know, you can't go to work with holy shoes, and you know, you need some lipstick, and that stuff costs money, so, you know, or a toupee, or whatever it is, right? You have to look good. So I think that in pitching your stories, if it has tension or it has a person who has a good story, there's lots of, you know, I'm in the business of, I write 3 times a week, but my paper goes out 7 times a day, and we have to fill it. So both those things should sell themselves. And if you can't find the person who is a Carol Gore who owns the beat, then you have to find a person that you know, or, you know, for bedbugs, the Joe Fiorito, and then you find the person who is a discovery reporter who enjoys the variety and the mosaic of stuff. I think some reasons, the Star's really good at this, and I think in part we have a number of experts, but many people in the room probably haven't spoken out because they're intimidated. And this, you know, last column I wrote about Linda and John's paper, I got a lot of vicious emails. People who are jealous of Linda, people who think I'm an idiot, people who are angry at the message, you know, who think that, you know, I'm saying, that my column was saying, you know, ODS, trying to dissuade people on ODSP from trying to work, which was not it, but it's intimidating, right? So you tell your story, it can be intimidating, you become a target of anger, and especially in the internet age, there's a lot of disembodied voices that are given power to just rage. And I get that a lot, and I think you have to be a little brave and just think that your story is worth telling, and if you have truth on your side, then you're going to take it on the chin quite a bit. And it won't just be you, because believe me, like, I think I'm really nice. I bike to work, and I'm like, I can't believe that so many people hate me. This person. And it's funny, I often write people back, and I'd be like, well, that was really aggressive. Was that really necessary to call my children APR children? And they'll, always write me back and be like, sorry, it was, Anyway, but I think from the flip side, from a journalist perspective, this stuff is intimidating. There's 400 rules. And it's very intimidating to try and pretend that you're an expert on it. And so I think that in a way that's why a lot of people don't take it on, because it's easy to get wrong. And it's easy to be told you're an idiot, and perhaps you're going to be an idiot throughout it, and you don't know, like just the way that people here find it's really hard to navigate the rules. It's the same from a journalist perspective. It's hard to find someone who can unlock them for you. It's hard to find answers from a bureaucracy that help you understand it. So it's really cool to be in a room with people who do that, because that job is really important, to have people who are brains on that, because more and more in my industry, we have goodbye parties almost every week right now at the Star. Newspaper industry is dying, and there's going to be fewer and fewer people who invest the time to become experts on really complicated things. So I think it's really important to have people on the outside, like John and the Atkinson Institute too, that spend the time to try and distill it and help people out. Because once the Carol Gore and the Laurie Montserratons take a buyout, you're going to be left with a whole bunch of first year, second year, fifth year, 10-year journalists who aren't specialists in this area, and it's much easier to cover a fire, right? Like, there's a beginning, there's an end, there's action, there's drama. You just have to be there and show up and interview some people. You don't need to dig into 400 rules and try and take it on. So I think that's all I wanted to say. I guess you asked me, what the role of stories are, and I think it is important for people here, if you have a story that you think, is worth telling, to tell it. I see my role often, when I look at the census of what the city is, it's the subway, right? If I take the subway to work when I'm not biking, and it's the subway. But when I look at my cross-section of life, of who I deal with intimately, it is not the subway. It's very much people who look like me, who talk like me. A lot of my friends, I have some, but it's not a subway smorgasbord of people, of income brackets, of colors, of backgrounds. And I think that that's a job of storytellers, is trying to make those introductions, like as if you were on the subway and you just started talking to people like, hey, I don't know anyone from Somalia. Tell me what it's like to be here. Or I think that that's why, in part, storytelling is really important, to introduce ourselves to ourselves, because despite the fact we live in a city that's really cosmopolitan, I really think of it as a bunch of high-rises often. We all go underground, but we don't mix. And with that, the understanding that's really important. So, understanding where other people come from and why they're struggling, so you don't have the welfare bomb mentality. As soon as a story is personalized, I think it's very hard to be vicious, because you start seeing that most of the world is gray and not black and white. And the other thing is, I like to think of myself as an activist columnist. And there is some action that can happen from writing in terms of pointing the trigger, pointing the gun and pulling the trigger on the target. So please come up and tell me your stories, and if I can help pull triggers, that's what I think our job is to keep people honest and move people to action.